Falling Frontier is a game I've had my eyes on for quite a while. What we have in this Space RTS game is an attention to detail and complexity in mechanics that we don't normally get in Space RTS games. One that borders on 4X, simulation and management, along with RTS, and possibly even grand strategy in ways. Not only that, but Falling Frontier has that depth and attention and complexity on a scale that is truly galactic in design, where you'll come to terms with just how small you really are on the map being evident from the get-go. In this video, I want to get into the details of the game from what we know in videos, via chats on Discord, and personal conversations I've had with the developer in an effort to craft a deeper understanding of this game and how it's going to operate. We'll look into the theme, briefly check out the masterful music, roll into exploration and how it affects expansion, moving into the economic side that will ultimately fuel your military and the use of ships and battles. For those looking to hop around and check out specific sections, I put timestamps in the description below for your viewing pleasure. So let's dive into the massive space sci-fi RTS game that is Falling Frontier. Falling Frontier's world building and scale were two of the larger pulls for myself when I first checked out this game. The star system in which the game takes place is not our native Sol, rather a system we've never seen and custom built by creator Todd Darcy. Each faction has its ancestral line based on a planet or moon based back on Sol, bringing with it unique faction bonuses or effects with different starting technologies as well. While this idea of a unique faction traits is certainly not a new one in the strategy genre, it's the scale in which you'll be playing that I believe will actually have a pretty significant effect on which faction you end up choosing. The scale of Falling Frontier is truly massive, epic. I'm not quite sure how to accurately portray it, but it is indeed quite large. Unlike games such as Sins of a Solar Empire or even Star Wars Empire at War, where the jump between entire systems across a galaxy can make the game seem big, with Falling Frontier, you are traveling and exploring individual moons and planets within a single system, and you can 100% traverse the expanse of space in between them all. Traveling at sublight speed takes time, with potentially hours between planets should you not want to spend precious fuel, or remain somewhat undetected going into unknown territory. Faster than light jumps, which do use fuel, are instant, yet can come with risks, although they are rather fantastic looking if I'm being completely honest. With this scale in mind, expansion, exploration, and empire building becomes rather intricate, and with a good deal of strategic forethought involved, which brings in faction selection again. Do you choose a faction that focuses on mining asteroid fields, so you have a stock of resources at all times, and keep the logistical line smooth? Do you choose one that has great industrial traits to refine those materials instead? Perhaps you'll choose one that uses fuel more efficiently, thus allowing you to push your ships further into space for more risky ventures. The scale of this game really does have implications on which one you'll choose based on your own playstyle, with so much space to play into and grow. It will be very interesting to see how it all lays out. The combination of setting and scale brings us into the realm of hard space science fiction. This isn't Star Trek or Star Wars with fancy pew-pew battles and unlimited resources or manpower. The creator's inspiration evolved from more consequential science fiction settings like Dune, Blade Runner, and even Battlestar Galactica, and the audience might definitely make some parallels to The Expanse. The logistics, mechanics, and mannerisms within the game pull from a love of war strategy in ages past and present, with the more modern ideas coming from a retired service member who worked on a submarine his entire career. This hard sci-fi passion, the attention to detail, and a desire for realism means that your decisions matter and contribute to the larger picture in Falling Frontier, but not to the extent of removing the fun. One wrong move may leave ships stranded between celestial bodies, where you'll need to mount a rescue party to save or wrestle with the decision to let those ships and the population within them die alone and unheard. Or a lack of scouting a system could lead to an ambush and the destruction of your navy, leaving you both defenseless and with the enemy's knowledge of where you came from. The realistic and hard-hitting aspects of this game are very appealing, and I think it will be a hit with the strategy gamers across the spectrum. There are two major aspects of any game that are important to me in terms of immersion and playability: user interface and music. While I am always hopping on the UI of games on this channel, I'm bypassing this for Falling Frontier because it is indeed an ever-evolving aspect at the moment. To cover it in depth would not give you an accurate reading later in development. I will say this though, it's very well designed. I really dig it, and it fits the setting of the game perfectly. But onto music. Music will get its own short section in this video because I want to call it out in the best of ways. If you look at most very successful games, and indeed this is very true with strategy games, music is one of the key pieces in developing immersion. The best music rolls into its different tracks depending on the situation, always staying on theme throughout the entire experience. Falling Frontier has some extremely thematic, masterfully designed music at hand. Composed entirely by Scott Buckley, the soundtrack in this game so far does a great deal into immersing you into the science fiction world. Scott gives us a range of tracks from chill peacetime vibes that can evolve into more complex event-based beats, crescendoing into fantastic space-themed songs that rival some large production studios in their quality. Again, immersion is key with these. Without that, these are just well-composed tracks. But from the videos on Falling Frontier that I've seen thus far, the immersion is there, alive and thriving. A big thanks, by the way, to Scott for allowing me to use a few of these tracks in this video today. If you want to check him out, you can look at the various links below, including his Twitch streams, where he will regularly work on new Falling Frontier tracks while live. With the foundations of the game established, it's time to move along to exploration and expansion, and Falling Frontier seems to go beyond the normal expectations when it comes to both. Starting with a single colony and a small handful of ships, it will take a bit of strategizing to expand. Your spaceports have the ability to send out probes to explore the area around you. As they travel to their destination, you'll get pings of various types, moons, asteroid belts, or even potential anomalies like a group of ships or a cluster of spaceport buildings, with the idea that the larger the structure or group of ships, the easier it is to detect them. There's a few kickers in this though. First, your probes are not invisible. They can be detected just as easily depending on the proximity of structures or enemy ships to the path of the probe. Secondly, a probe has to make it back to base to give you detailed information. That shouldn't be a problem except for the third kicker, and that is the fact that any probe has a percentage chance to fail for any reason. You may send a probe to an asteroid belt and it disappears suddenly. That could be due to it, say, hitting an asteroid or some system malfunction, or it was detected by an enemy ship and destroyed. You won't be given a reason as to why it didn't come back, so it's a risk versus reward scenario right from the start. Do you believe that an enemy fleet could be in the same area as you, or do you risk a military operation to explore in a more permanent way? Exploration isn't limited to probes, of course. Sending a single ship or a fleet is another way to go about it, but it also has its means of limitation. Ships operate around multiple types of resources: fuel, food, and ammo. None of these are an unlimited supply, and it's very feasible to overextend exploration operations and end up leaving a ship stranded without enough fuel to get home quickly, or even without food. You could always make a customized ship through upgrading modules for deeper exploration, be it larger fuel and food storage, upgradable parts to use resources more efficiently. But there are slower and more methodical methods as well, and this is where exploration and expansion meet. If your ships need a steady supply of resources to continue exploring, it only makes sense to expand your operations to allow both faster and deeper travel. We'll get into the economic specifics of this in the next section, but what will naturally develop will be a chain of supply depots throughout your empire, with transports constantly delivering those precious resources to areas of interest. It's not outside of reason to expect some of these depots and space stations to evolve into outposts or hubs geared specifically towards further exploration or expansion. There is one other way to go about this without having to slowly creep outward from a central point. There are multiple types of economic and military grade vessels to construct within the game, civilian transports being among the economic ones. And it is possible to bring together a custom deep space flotilla consisting of a mix between military and civilian vessels, say some tankers for fuel and ammo, allowing for much slower again, but longer exploration missions. While certainly creating some different risky scenarios, it's always something that has an element of surprise for an unsuspecting enemy. To power this system of exploration and expansion, you have to have an economy. And while you certainly may start small, the potential for growth is only limited by the player's ability to handle the logistics of that economy. As mentioned in the beginning of this video, the incredibly vast expanse of space can all be explored and even built within, but most of your economy will be centered around asteroids, planets, and moons, as these are your points of resource extraction or generation. Resources are broken up into a couple of tiers, with your base tier being ore, fuel, and people, and your second tier being food and digital money. Ore and fuel can be mined from asteroids or on celestial bodies and are used as the backbone for your building infrastructure and ship construction. These base resources are brought to your spaceports from your civilian mining ships, where they can be held in storage to be used when necessary, or shipped off to refineries, where they can be refined into larger quantities at the expense of taking more time. People are certainly not mined. Rather, they multiply at a certain rate, albeit only on planets or colonies. See, in Fallen Frontier, there is no luxury in space. Ships are a method of transportation in the vacuum of space, where they are more comparable to a submarine than a ship above the water. Compact, tight, and cold. Not exactly a place to get jiggy with it, if you know what I mean. Your people serve multiple functions within your economy. People generate taxes in the form of money, and they'll generate more on those planets and colonies than they will aboard ships, as hazard pay while in space is essentially deducted from the taxes they will have to pay. Beyond just taxes, you will want to populate your ships in order to increase their efficiency, and you will even be able to create various officers from your population, although at a great expense. The numbers are currently being balanced, but at one point a single officer cost 1,000 people to enact. The justification being that the officer program was so rigorous that it killed the other 999. You will want officers though, as they'll provide you with the traits and benefits that can decide the fate of a close battle or help prevent more loss of life than you would otherwise. Your populated ships will require food to survive, which in the grand scope of things seems like the least necessary resource of the game at this point, yet is still obviously crucial. A ship full of food can outlast a destroyed engine, allowing time to wait on a rescue mission, or survive a ship that's run out of fuel and needs to limp back to port. Without food, your crew will indeed starve, and you're not only lost a ship, but the people's contribution to your economy as well. People might just be your mightiest resource, and losing them has great economic implications. So far, the economy still seems rather simple. You mine resources, let people do the boom boom, and you're ready to expand using all the resources in one big lump, like most other strategy games. Let me throw a monkey wrench into that economy engine though. Unlike those other strategy games, all of the aforementioned resources, aside from money, are extremely local, as in a radius within each port local. Just because you have 20,000 ore in your starting port does not mean you have that much ore halfway across the system. And queuing up some frigates in that shipyard half a galaxy away does not guarantee instant construction. If you want to have enough resources to construct that ship, you'll have to transport it there through supply depots, who themselves have a radius in which they can operate. This is where the logistics kicks in. Nearly every building in Fallen Frontier has the capability to set a minimum amount of ore or fuel or food that they'll need to have at all times. If the amount of resources falls below the minimum, an order will automatically be placed that rides down the supply chain until it can be fulfilled. Supply depots have a maximum of 3 routes they can deliver to within their radius, and this allows an efficient system of hubs for certain resources across your territory. You may want to centralize some supply chains, raising the minimum cap on more heavily demanded ones than perhaps others further out in space. The only exception to this logistics system is people. You cannot create automatic orders of people, it must come from the player themselves. You can't expect to just store people in ports across space without some serious issues cropping up. These people can still be shipped off to remote locations like any other resource, but the order has to come from the player themselves. While such a system is indeed very cool to think about and implement, it is also an incredibly fragile one. The same supply lines that give life to your outer post can, with a simple attack, be destroyed, cutting off that lifeline and creating a logistical nightmare. I can imagine a good chunk of tuning that efficiency will also be spent figuring out how to adequately defend those supply lines, putting structures in place for early detection, defensive platforms, or even keeping the number of ships within the radius of your more important economic arteries. Now that the depth of the economy in Falling Frontier is laid out, it can certainly seem a bit daunting. I haven't played it myself, obviously, but I do know that the developer is going to do his best to balance complexity and fun, hopefully ensuring that players on both the casual and hardcore sides of the spectrum all enjoy the mechanics of the game, and I certainly have faith that he will hit that balance during development. Everything we've talked about so far cannot be accomplished without ships, which comes full circle when you realize that you cannot build ships without ore and money to construct it, fuel to travel, people to run them, and food to keep those people alive. Expansion will bring you more resources to expand your fleet to fuel expansion even further. Focusing on the combat side of the game though, in Falling Frontier your ship's design will matter just as much as the tactics you use in battle. To give you an idea of the scale of customization within the release version of the game, version 1.0 will feature 20 different chassis or base ship structures with around 30 to 50 different modules to fill out your ships. The chassis will range from smaller frigates up to destroyers, and no doubt will include much larger capital type ships. The range of modules will include exterior upgrades to weapon systems such as pulse cannons, missiles, and railguns of multiple tiers, to interior customization, larger storage modules for deeper exploration, cabins to house more people, in turn ramping up ship effectiveness, even jump drive customization for longer or more efficient jumps between points on the map. There are more mission-specific type modules as well, additional armor, quick access escape pods, minefield layering, internal hangars to assist in search and rescue jobs, or even logistical refills. So the idea of very specific fleets can very realistically be a possibility. Need a deep space flotilla? Pack your warships with slots for more storage of fuel and food. Going into a known heavily armed area? Upgrade your ship with more armor to take on whatever you find there. I would love to have a search and rescue fleet to salvage ships and rescue officers or crew since they're so valuable. Having ships outfitted to handle the humanitarian aftermath of a large battle would be great. With Falling Frontier inspired by a more hard science fiction setting, there's a good deal of realism that goes into the physics and logistics of your game and the star system around you, which is a natural lean into the battles and tactics side you get to experience with the game. This call to realism and physics means that the chassis and modules you select can truly make a difference once engagement starts. Frigates will be lighter and faster, able to outmaneuver a larger ship like a destroyer. However, a destroyer might be more heavily armored and pack a much harder punch due to its heavier firepower. One-on-one, the destroyer might win. It won't stand a chance against multiple faster ships though. Taking to the battlefield, the 2D plane of the game provides even slower ships with advantages over their faster enemies. With asteroid fields and other celestial bodies aplenty in the game, line of sight, or lack thereof, can provide some crucial benefits like laying an ambush for a group of ships in which you know their direction of attack, or should you be outnumbered, disengaging from battle by losing them behind some asteroids. It gets a bit deeper as we continue to look into the operation and progression of battles. Every shot and projectile type has a consequence, being physically represented in the world and having an interaction with it. The same goes for ships themselves. A massive salvo of missiles could very easily break apart an asteroid, removing potential hiding spots for better or worse. Bullet penetration has just been added into combat, where you'll see oxygen venting from holes punched through a ship's armor. Accuracy is very dependent on proximity, meaning a ship with further range might be able to fire its weapon sooner, but with less chance to hit successfully. Battles will see a decent bit of micro due to all of these factors. You're not going to want to warp into a battle and just try to slug it out like any other strategy game hoping for the best outcome. Weak points in a ship's armor matter, so knowing what ammo certain ships carry is going to make that difference. Targeting engines or the bridge is possible, allowing you to render a ship useless with its survivors still on board. But these things won't just happen. It will take skill and an actual tactical plan to push a flank or utilize objects in your area, to think ahead and maneuver your ships the right way so that 10 to 20 seconds into the future, your positioning is right on target due to, say, the slow turning speed and momentum of your larger destroyer. That's the part I'm incredibly excited for, and I can't wait to try it and execute once I get my hands on the game. What I really love about this combination of mechanics that we're seeing in Falling Frontier is something I'm seeing in a lot of indie game development. Smaller engagements that cause more massive consequences in its aftermath. Falling Frontier will not feature ultimate epic space battles with thousands of ships and unlimited ammo for prolonged fighting. You won't be able to spam out ships at a ridiculous pace to replenish your fleet after a major defeat, and here's why. As discussed in the last section, ships are going to cost you a rather massive amount of resources. The logistics of keeping multiple fleets constantly stocked with fuel, food, or ammo means that it just will not be feasible to field a huge number of ships at any given time, not to mention that the incredible cost of creating officers would mean you would either have tons of zero-skill ships or a population that could quickly drive a faction to extinction as you plunder it for your massive navy. Instead, what happens is that smaller engagements are much more involved and much more intense because every ship is an investment. When you lose a ship, you've lost time, you've lost resources, and you've lost people. A lot of them. It drives the incentive for rescue missions. You'll want to rescue your crew to repurpose your officers or save your people. As cold as it might be, dead people can't pay taxes, so losing your crew means a bit more with that perspective. Captured officers can also reveal intel on ship locations, mining operations, or even planets and ports. A major battle that results in multiple ships being disabled or destroyed might then become a salvage race to see who's left or who can get there the fastest to grab materials or even commandeer enemy ships to a local shipyard and turn them into your own. This point being made, there's a pretty huge incentive to not just leave things floating out in space. Doing so means leaving opportunities for other factions to swoop in and get a small leg up economically. It doesn't end there though. The economic and military implications from these battles could be felt more harshly than imagined. Revealing an important logistics hub through interrogation might lead to a covert operation of a few frigates that warp in long enough to destroy a few ships or blow up the hub completely, breaking that logistical artery and halting all production lines. Captured ships might contain technology unknown to the faction, letting you create a new class of warship to equalize the next battle. All of these ideas can stem from simple, small, but player-engaged battles that are masterfully designed and also wonderfully audio-intensive in the best of ways. To start the wrap up for this video, I want to give you a bit of what's going on now from early access to the future. Version 1.0 will include the 20 ship chassis and the up to 50 modules as previously mentioned, and the scenario that we'll all play will be a pre-built system against the AI in a sort of free-for-all skirmish mode. If that doesn't quite tickle your fancy, the future of the game just might. As development continues, customized systems, larger systems, more players, and even specific campaigns are all on the table. Not to mention additional buildings, ships, modules, and technology to spice up every playthrough. While nothing is set in stone, the degree of additional features will of course be dependent on how successful early access is. Remember, this is still a single developer, not a team. Development will not be in huge leap and bounds, nor is it guaranteed that we will see consistent or frequent updates, which is something just to keep in mind of when you buy into this early access game. From what I've seen so far with the game and my conversations with Todd, this passion project turned to reality is indeed something special and unique. I would bank on a very successful development cycle, and I'm eager to see how the game progresses through early access in the future. If you're looking to find ways to support the developer and Falling Frontier, there are a few easy ones at the moment, the most important being wishlisting on Steam. Wishlisting gives the developer an idea on what demand might look like on early access release, and it shows Steam the hype levels of the game for promotional purposes. Second, social media. Falling Frontier has a Discord with a very active community. including near daily updates on development in various areas of the game, including showing off works in progress videos to glean feedback from its members. You can also follow them on Twitter and YouTube as well. The YouTube channel showcases larger development updates like quarterly production advancements, finished mechanics, and yes, some of those work in progress videos make up there as well. But in either case, you will see a wider range of information and scope of the game by checking out both. Links will be in the description. I would also be doing ill service to the game and the developer if I did not drop the music producer Scott Buckley again. His tracks have been rolling under my voice the entire video, and what he has created thus far is a humanizing experience amidst the vastness of space we will soon be playing. Scott's music is very instrumental to the tone of the game as a whole, and I am eager to hear more of his tracks when they are finished. You can find his YouTube channel in the description as well, so go check it out and see the range and quality of music that he is bringing to the world wide webs. And that will be all for this dive into Falling Frontier by Todd Darcy. Hope you enjoyed the ride. It honestly went way further than I had planned on creating, but I am very passionate and excited about this game, and with so much to explain, it spilled out to nearly twice as much as I thought it would, although I can't imagine many people complaining about that. If you did enjoy the video and the content within, be sure to give it a thumbs up and drop a comment down below. I highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel and turn on bell notifications so you can always stay up to date with videos on this channel. Rest assured, you will definitely see coverage of Falling Frontier on this channel and on Twitch as I stream it, so head over there to give it a follow for when the time comes. Thank you all for watching. This is Havoc, and I will see you all in the next video.